Welcome to the program's dialogue. This is a series of events in preparation of the Clean Energy Transition Partnership, one of the partnerships under preparation for Horizon Europe, the new framework program for research and development. This series of events is facilitating a dialogue between ERANETs with their successful formats and with their experiences of the last 10 years, and national program owners and program managers. The event series is hosted by the joint programming platform Smart Energy Systems. Please be aware that the events are provided on our YouTube channel as a live stream and as a recording, resulting in the fact that whatever you contribute in the chat or via live talk will be public. The Clean Energy Transition Partnership is going to be a transnational joint programming initiative to boost and accelerate the energy transition, building upon regional and national RDI funding programs. Therefore, the program's dialogue intends to create joint knowledge about the most powerful and successful formats and tools to promote research, technology development, and innovation. In a mutual learning and capacity building exercise, we want to learn about good practices, successful activities, effective approaches, but also about the things we tried to do and that did not work out. For this, we want to create together with you an open and interactive atmosphere. The dialogue events are organized in a SureFix mode every Friday at 11 a.m. on this YouTube channel. Each event will present one or a group of initiatives, and we have already a dense schedule until mid-March. However, if you want to present your program or initiative and you are not on the list yet, please let us know and we will find a slot for you. Each of the events will have the same format of presentation blocks of about 10 to 15 minutes, highlighting a specific topic or aspect, followed by a question and answer and discussion session of about 10 minutes. If you have a question, please use the chat function in the YouTube channel. We will bring it up. You want to get on stage and discuss live with the speakers? Send your request in the chat. We will bring you up on stage. The process to develop the Clean Energy Transition Partnership has come a long way. We have started with a stakeholder groups dialogue with all the SETPlan initiatives and ERANETs, developing thematic RDI challenges in spring and summer last year. Based on these inputs in a country's dialogue, the Strategic Research and Innovation Agenda was developed and launched in a SETPlan conference side event in November 2020. Now we want to bring together all the partners, funding institutions, ministries, program managers and program owners that are ready to contribute to the implementation of this new joint programming initiative. The number of countries and regions joining has been growing and growing over the last months, and there are still new partners coming on board. A great core team of enthusiastic experts from different organizations all over Europe is committed to bring this initiative forward. Enjoy the program's dialogue, and now let us introduce the speakers of today. Yes, hello everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the last event of our series. This is going to be another exciting example on a program that is dedicated to be mission oriented or challenge driven. We will learn this during the presentations. I'm very happy to welcome our speakers from the program Viable Cities from Sweden today. Our speakers will be Olle Amstrand Dirks from Viable Cities, Katarin Perversa from the KTH Royal Institute of Technology, Asa Minots from Viable Cities, and Emina Pasik from the Swedish Energy Agency. I also welcome my dear co-moderators Gary Brembroek from the Netherlands Enterprise Agency and Fredrik Lundström from the Swedish Energy Agency.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, time to celebrate nearly because this is our last event. It's going to be another exciting event. But our series is ending here. So I'm very happy again, Gerdi and Fredrik, to be here with you in good company. Thanks for keeping the keeping it up and keeping the commitment through this whole series. Our first session of today will be about the characteristics of a mission-oriented program, particularly the example Viable Cities. And our first speakers are Asa Minots and Emina Pasik. Hello.
Hi there.
Hello.
Hi, good to see you. Before we jump into the presentation, maybe you could introduce yourself briefly, starting with Asa, please.
Yes, hi, I'm Åsa Minos. So I'm part of the program management team of Viable Cities. I have the role of innovation strategist. I've been part of this program since, nearly the beginning. In the spring of 2018. It started in 2017. So I've been in the core development team of the program.
Great. And Emina?
Hello, I'm Emina Pasik from Swedish Energy Agency, and I've been involved since the start of this initiative, and I'm responsible from Swedish Energy Agency for the management of Viable Cities program.
Great. Maybe a little bit of about the background. How did this program come into life? Who was initiating it, or a little bit of the background story, Asa?
Yeah, actually, it's one of 17 strategic innovation programs that are in Sweden, and it's funded by 3 government agencies jointly on behalf of the government. Vinnova, the Swedish Energy Agency that Emina represents, and Formas. So it's actually a kind of activist-driven program format. So there was Amina will talk a little bit about this. There was an effort among different actors from society, academia, companies, civil society organizations, and public organizations to come together along an innovation agenda. And then there was an application to Vinnova and the other 2 agencies, Energy Agency and Formas, to be funded for this program. And it's really fierce competition, I would say, because there were some, I think, between 200 and 300 potential programs, but there are now 17 being funded. And we are the last one to start. So we started in 2017.
And maybe Emina and Fredrik, can you comment a little bit on, I mean, what kind of discussions or how long is it that from the Swedish Energy Agency and the other Swedish agencies you are after these kind of programs where you stepped into this kind of challenge-driven or mission-oriented programming? What was there a certain reason or discussion behind? I don't know if Emina is hearing us at the moment, so maybe Fredrik can. Emina, yes.
Now I'm back. Now I hear you. Please, Michael, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, the question was if what was the specific discussion behind that you started to finance or to promote such kind of programs that are mission oriented or challenge driven?
Yes, I'm going to explain a little bit later,
Oh, yeah.
much more in detail how we initiated this program and
Very
this
good.
initiative. And actually, it's 17 different strategic innovation program on different thematical issue.
That's an impressive number.
Yes, and I'll explain a little bit later more how we started this discussion and idea to develop this huge activity.
Very good. Then maybe not to lose time, let's jump into the first presentation part, which is, as I said already, about the characteristics of such a mission-oriented program. And please, Asa and Emina, the floor is yours. Start your presentation.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to give some characteristics about this mission-oriented program, Viable Cities, and Emina will join me at the end. So, as we said, the Viable Cities is a Swedish strategic innovation program, and our mission is formulated as climate neutral cities by 2030, with a good life for all within planetary boundaries. And actually, this mission is executed with a large number of member organizations representing quadruple helix, that is academia, public sector organizations, companies, and civil society organizations. So for the time being, we have 100 members representing all these 4 parts of society. We have a program period of 12 years running until 2030. The total funding is about 100 million euros, and it's 50% state funding from these 3 government agencies and 50% partner funding, co-funding from the projects that we fund. So the basic thing that we do is that we invest in a portfolio of different activities and projects, which on the one hand are open call for proposals and also strategic activities that are dedicated to our members. And about this mission-oriented approach, so we're kind of forerunners in the mission-oriented approach that is actually developed now within the EU program Horizon Europe. So these missions are kind of a step ahead, I would say, from the challenge-driven approach. It is visionary goals, but yet very clear. So what is to be achieved and by when is this to happen? So we are to achieve climate neutral cities by 2030 with a good life for all within planetary boundaries. The purpose is to break boundaries and mobilize actors across disciplines and sectors. And the goal is to achieve transformative innovation on a systems level. But this is what we need in order to achieve the climate neutrality and to keep the warming of the planet below 1.5 degrees. So one of our flagship effort within Viable Cities is an effort that we call Climate Neutral Cities 2030, where 9 cities and their partners, representing quadruple helix, are pioneering efforts to accelerate the climate transition of cities. There was a call for proposals starting in September 2019, and now there are 9 cities, as I said. By the end of this year, there will be 20 cities. So the Organization of Viable Cities is an association of our members. It is hosted by KTH, the Royal Institute of Technology, and our principal government agency is the Swedish government agency, Swedish Energy Agency, sorry. And we are run by a board, elected by members, and a program director and a program management team. Ola and me are part of the program management team. We have a whole host of different projects within our portfolio. One big part is Climate Neutral Cities 2030. We also have a program which is quite large on sharing cities, sharing solutions for climate neutral and sustainable cities, and a whole host of other projects. And Olle will talk about kind of how we get this whole thing to work in a common direction. So when we talk about transformative innovation, systems innovation, we like to kind of look at this as it's about icebergs, looking at this as icebergs. The innovative solutions per se and the actors and the actor networks of collaboration are what you can see and what we generally focus a lot on. But these are in turn, they are also kind of very much conditioned by what is below the water. That is how the financial instruments work, the financial logics, what policies are in place and how these policies can be changed. And at the lowest level or at the profound level, we can say that this is the big why. Why are we doing all this? And I would say that mission-oriented approach is about looking for the why, looking for the purpose. And in our case, it's about achieving climate neutral cities and sustainable cities. In our work, we find that transformative systems change need human-centered approach. So it's all about taking the citizens as a basic starting point. What do humans living in cities need and want? It's about collaboration and co-creation, and also scalability, replicability, and focus on impact and effects. And this requires portfolio thinking and ecosystems of projects and initiatives that are all aligned towards the mission. And since mission and systems innovation is based on taking the standpoint that this is a complex issue, experiences and experimentation, doing things are really of the essence. And obviously also to follow up and measure impact or effects are also key. One way that we use in order to accelerate our learning for climate transition is that we have a Viable Cities Transition Lab that is kind of a platform for learnings between cities and all other stakeholders. So as I said, we have now 9 cities in our climate neutral cities effort, and at the end of this year, they will be 20. And the main task is to accelerate the learning in order to really make a dent in the climate transition in cities and do it in a way that is just and inclusive. And this Viable Cities Transition Lab is a way to clarify the common direction. It's easy to say climate neutral cities, but what does it mean in really kind of concrete terms in each city? Take advantage of synergies and renew decision-making and policy. The way climate transition work is done today is not sufficient. We need to accelerate the work in a very, very significant way. And we need to work with building capacity for change and renew our practices in terms of how cities work and what is done in order to accelerate the transition to climate neutral and sustainable cities. And with that, I'd like to give the floor to Emina. Over to you, Emina.
Thank you, Osa. And I just going to give you some few words about Swedish Energy Agency, which is National Authority for Energy Policy issue. And as you see, our mission is leading the society's transition to sustainable energy systems. And at the same time, Swedish Energy Agency is national funding agencies sorted under Ministry of Infrastructure, government funded and regulated by government through the instruction and annual appropriation directives. And we have headquarters in Eskilstuna, also office in Stockholm. We also have a certification for environmental management and even energy management. On the right side, you see our just overview of our tasks. We have responsibility for energy security, energy statistics and policy issue. And in the middle, you see in this round bubble, research and innovation and business development. For approximately 5 years ago, we joined these activities in the same department, research and innovation and business development, to be able to create much more effective activities for the national and international collaboration. And also we have policy instruments. We are national policy responsible for national legislation for energy and even climate issue. And of course, energy efficiency measure and international collaboration. It's like a really broad overview of our activities at the Swedish Energy Agency. But most important is that is both combine national funding instruments and also policy instruments. We take next slide also. And please, can you turn to next? Yes, thank you. And if we want go back to the Bible City story, how we started this initiative, and I also in the at the beginning promise to Michael to come back to this historical starting point and talk, just give you some more details how we think in that time. Swedish Energy Agency, Swedish Innovation Agency Vinnova, and Swedish Research Council had been commissioned by government to develop a new initiative with a focus on the strategic innovation related to the goals in Agenda 2030 in 2013, actually. And we started to brainstorming the first basic criteria and for strategic innovation cornerstones. And we said we need to meet global competition and find sustainable solution to global society challenges. We want to see cross-border collaboration for renewal of Swedish areas for strengths. We want to that actors set the agenda based on their needs. We want to gathering resource and skills, and of course we want to create long-term investment and also open to everyone. And with this cornerstones, we opened the call in 2015 for strategic innovation agenda, where actors in area jointly develop vision, goals, and strategies. And after 2 years, we opened the call for strategic innovation program to realize the visions and goals of the innovation agendas. And Next slide, please. And in this call, we, as I also mentioned, we got the 17th program, which is the Viable Cities, the youngest program in this series, and all programs have a strong focus on the challenge-driven innovation. And just a few words about the funding model for the Viable Cities, please. Also, can you take the next? Yes, thank you. The basic model for the funding is a PPP, private-public collaborative model, which is created by and supported by 50% of national budget and 50% of Viable Cities actors. And you see in this model for the how to Swedish funding agency collaborate. That SVEA, Swedish Energy Agency, is supporting by up to 80%, and Vinnova 10%, 13%, and Formas 11%. And we organize the different activities, which also already mentioned, in the frame of this program platform: 2 calls annually, strategic projects, co-creation and matchmaking workshops, joint projects with the other strategic innovation programs from this family of 17, Nordic region collaboration with on a European level in the frame of different aranets, and of course international collaboration with China, US, India. And just a few words of Viable Cities Transition Lab, which is the strategic project in the frame of the program, and you see this. We have organized the different part of the projects in this platform, which is one of the climate city contracts already well known in the few discussions: system demonstrator, reflexive learning, strategic communication, including storytelling, and of course still developing innovation competition and the frame for innovation procurement. I think this is my last slide. Yes, and this is the co-creation and innovation platform by Swedish funding agency together with Viable Cities. It means that really this is a model and example how the different funding agencies can develop the platform by different part of the activities in the same program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emina and Asa. Very impressive. The first thing that I observe, and which I think is quite impressive, is that you managed in Sweden to put this so high on the political agenda. So it's not just a question of, one agency to develop a program or so, but it's really a joint effort of many public bodies, and it's really very on a high political agenda. That's what I find quite impressive. Fredrik, Gerdi, any questions or remarks that you want to make?
Well, just for my, thank you very much. I want to, reiterate what Mikael said. Of course, this is very impressive and very good how you managed to take such a large group together collaborating in one program. You have 9 viable cities, if I understand it correctly, and that number has also increased to 20 now. And together they bring up the money to fund the activities of the Viable Cities Initiative. Is that correct, or am I now mistaken?
Actually, in the programs that in the projects that we fund, we have half of the funding coming from the government agencies, the 3 government agencies, and half is coming from the project partners. So it's a very kind of concerted efforts, and about the 9 cities currently in our effort, Climate Neutral Cities 2030. The next coming wave, we talk about waves. So it's a first wave with the 9 cities. Then we have a second wave where another 11 cities will be joining by October, sometime like this. And we will kind of really through Transition Lab and through other efforts accelerate the learning in between both the municipality and other actors in order to kind of transform cities.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe additional comments to get this question, that we have many cities involved in the projects in the Viber cities, but these 9 cities is a first group which developing the front runner for climate city contract, and now we have opened the call for the new cities, which we want to see to really to get on board 11 cities that have a group of 20 cities who are going to continue development of climate city contract as a new innovation instrument, which connecting the funding and policy issue in the same tool.
Yeah, and I would say that it's about creating a movement actually, and it's about really starting from the viewpoint of what do the city need, what are they, how can we build their capabilities as a holistic approach. So I would say that this effort, Climate Neutral Cities 2030, where we have 9 plus now 11 cities, is kind of a core effort within the mission driven approach. So we're all kind of going for the same mission, Climate Neutral Cities by 2030, and in a kind of holistic, sustainable way as well.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Nicholas. Oh yeah, Fredrik. Yes.
Yeah, no, just a short comment. And first, maybe let me put it in myself in the context, since I'm actually a colleague of Emina. We are in the same unit, but it's still, for me, good to hear about the details. And I have some kind of outside eyes. I've, of course, heard a lot about your work, and I'm really impressed. And I think we are many also in the Swedish Energy Agency that look with impressive eyes what you achieve. I think many other sectors would like to be able to achieve similar things. And what you mentioned also specifically about the cities in the role, or the municipalities in the role of, they have a clear need and it's a mission that they are driving. I think this is what many other sectors look for. What I don't know is how easy it would be for other sectors. Maybe for regions it could be similar, but if we would talk about industrial sectors or other aspects. But there I wanted to ask you, Åsa, what do you think are there some key elements? I mean, you have the cities, but is it because they already have a framework to collaborate, or what is it that makes it possible to create such an alliance, which is sort of the basis for this program?
I would say that one basis is actually that a mission-oriented or mission-driven approach is based on Agenda 2030 and the Paris Agreement at the core. And this is something that is kind of very familiar to the work of municipalities. They drive change with these agendas. And in Sweden, that's kind of very, very pervasive, I would say, that is part of their core work. In climate action and in sustainability work. So that's kind of one basic point, I would say. And then cities are kind of systems of systems. So for instance, we have collaborations with our sibling programs. Emina and I were saying that there are 17 of those. For instance, we're collaborating with Drive Sweden, who is our sibling program focused on the future of transports and mobility, because we know that one key issue to resolve is how to transform mobility in order to cut climate emissions and to really become sustainable. We know that it's not only about greenhouse gas emissions. That's really, really key. We know that the mobility systems today is generating emissions, it's generating inequality, it's generating gender inequality as well. So we need to transform the way we transport people and goods, and we need to walk and cycle more, and we need to transform the way we plan and the way we organize the cities and the everyday lives we live. And that we do together with Drive Sweden. So it's not kind of one thing is the cities and another thing is the different industrial sectors. I would say it's the intersection that's it's all about. It's this kind of mission-oriented approach where you can align different agendas in a common direction. That is the key, I would say.
Yeah, Nicolas is now bringing up also the questions from the chat. Eleonora Riva Sanseverino says, are you considering climate neutrality balance also the negative emissions from green? Is there any consideration of life cycle assessment of technologies?
I would say that in Viable Cities, we're very kind of pragmatic in the way we work with the cities, because we have really learned that we need to meet the cities where they're at. There are a lot of climate action and sustainability action done in cities. There are a lot of political frameworks, political decision-making, strategic processes and agendas. So they are all different. So we try not to kind of impose, you need to do this or you need to do that. We try to facilitate learning in order to kind of, how do we frame, for instance, the goal formulations. Some cities have territorial or organizational goals around climate transition. There are different scoping, scope 1, 2, 3. Some internalize, for instance, consumption-based emissions, some don't. And we try to push the cities in order to kind of always go for the more ambitious goals, the more ambitious ways of working. So I would say that in the how do we consider climate neutrality? Well, I would say that's a journey, and it's a journey towards clearer and more ambitious goals all along.
As we got the question from Eleonora and Nicolas, maybe we could also show you her statement that was very supportive to what has been presented.
Thank you.
Gerdi, do you want to go on?
I don't have a question at this moment, so maybe...
Fredrik, something else? Otherwise, we could jump into the second presentation part. So
well, thanks. I'm happy.
I would welcome Ole Amstrand Dirks to the panel, I think, because the next session is about what has already been mentioned, the framework that you have built, a long-term commitment of collaboration, of cooperation between cities and the state level, the Climate City Contract 2030. Hello, Ole, maybe before we start the presentation, also a short introduction from yourself about your background.
Hello, and thank you so much for inviting me to this impressive dialogue series. I'm a colleague of Åsa's, so I'm also at the program management of Viable Cities, where I work as a portfolio strategist.
Great. So who is going to start? Is it Åsa?
Åsa will start, yes.
Okay,
yes.
then please take the floor.
Thank you. So let's dive into the Climate City Contract 2030, which is one of the instruments that we have developed within Viable Cities. It's a long-term commitment for cooperation between cities and the state level. And in December 2020, this is an image from an event that we held on the 11th of December together with the European Commission's offices in Sweden, where 9 city mayors, together with 4 director generals, signed the first version of the climate city contract that we have co-developed. So this is a really key element in the work that we do. And I will tell you a little bit more about what this is all about. So the climate city contract is actually a commitment from 2 sides. It's commitments from cities and it's commitments from the national level. And it's signed by cities, the city mayors, so the highest political officials of the cities, and the director generals of national bodies. And the commitments from the cities are about goals for becoming sustainable and climate neutral, strategies for achieving this, governance models, including citizen involvement, which is really key, climate investment plans and funding. So how do we actually invest in order to become climate neutral? That is part of the contract. And from the national level, there is commitments from these 4 government agencies. So the 3 funding agencies Viable Cities has, Vinnova, the Energy Agency, and Formas, and also the Swedish Agency for Regional Growth, which is responsible for the cohesion policy and the structural funds. So from the national level, it's about enhancing the work on policy and regulation. There are lots and lots of regulations that need to be applied and that need to be changed sometimes. So we need to work together on that, and we need to have more innovation focused on impacts, like the example I mentioned earlier on with our collaboration with our sibling program on the future of mobility. And we also need from the national level to coordinate funding and financing in a better way in order to achieve the mission of climate neutral and sustainable cities. So in essence, it's a negotiated collaboration for faster climate transition in cities with a local mobilization where municipalities commit to mobilizing and collaborating with all stakeholders, industry, academia, civil society, and citizens. A national mobilization where bodies at the national government level commit to coordinate state-level activities, financing policy, etc. So how does this come about? So the idea of a climate city contract was actually proposed in the mission board for climate neutral and smart cities as a preparative work for the missions approach within Horizon Europe. And this proposal was something that we really picked up. Our President Allan Larsson was vice chair of this mission board, and we had the opportunity to interact with the work of the mission board on climate neutral and smart cities at the EU level. So this idea of climate city contracts really appealed to us, and we tried last year and achieved this work by first meeting with the mayors of the 9 cities and finding out whether they thought this climate city contract could be something that we could co-develop together. And that was really kind of very positive signals from them. And in April, we achieved the letter of intent signed by all these 9 mayors, and this in the midst of the pandemic. So the municipalities were really on strain with the handling the pandemic at that time. So we were very, very happy to have them prioritize this work. We had the further deepening of these discussions during the year, and at the autumn in September, November, we had a second round of meetings with mayors and other people at the city levels, and also with the national level, the government agencies and the government and other initiatives like Fossil Free Sweden and such. And at the end of the year, in December, we achieved the signing of the first climate city contract by these 9 members and the 4 director generals. So actually, the 9 climate city contracts, 1 per city, are based on the city's goals and commitments. So there are commitments from the national level, there are commitments obviously from our program, and there are commitments from each city. And it's really a learning process with update and signing every year. So in English, we usually talk about climate city contracting rather than contract, because it's not kind of something that you sign, then you execute, but it's a learning process. So I would say that what we're trying, this is kind of a very information dense picture, but it's just to say that the climate city contracts is actually a framework for working, for creating infrastructure for missions, which is powered by the climate city contract. So there are things like how we develop the climate investment plans, how we develop the climate digital infrastructure, how we work with policy and regulatory issues, etc., etc. So this is kind of a holistic issue where we work closely with the cities, and that is also connected to the work on the EU level in achieving the mission for climate neutral cities 2030. And if you're interested, the climate city contracts are available on Viable Cities website. All of them are available in Swedish for those of you who read Swedish. 2 of them are translated into English for other people from the other parts of the world to be able to read them. And having transparency is really key also in the process of these contracts. So over to you, Olle, some reflections.
So thank you so much, Åsa. I just actually noted first now that it was a year ago that today, so 23rd of April in 2020, when we signed the first letter of intent with the 9 cities. And a bit more than a year ago, this was just a concept, but now we are at the stage where this is perhaps the epicenter of everything that we do at Viable Cities. So we've been moving forward quite quick together with all the cities and the governmental agencies to develop this framework of the climate city contracts, and it's really promising, I must say. So for us, it helps us to work closely with the cities and knowing what their key activities are as of today and what they can be in the future as well. So I think this, as also mentioned, the learning process or this ongoing process that we always sort of update it and push for stronger commitments is really key. I would say that there is, besides from for us to sort of share how we have been working with this, there might be some learnings that could be relevant also for other programs, or of course on the European level because of the linkage to the 100 cities. But besides the sort of the concept and how we framed it, how we work with it, I would say that there is also an opening if you want to join us in how we further develop it. So right now we're starting 3 strategic development projects. So each of these will be sort of having clear strategies in the end on how digitalization and digital tools can help the transformation towards becoming climate neutral. And thus also here updating the climate city contracts in the next version. And the same goes for citizen engagement as well as investment plans. So we will have reference groups around this. These will be typically Swedish members, but if there are any that is listening to this presentation that would be interested to join either one or several of these thematic areas. So again, digitalization, citizen engagement, and investment plans in relation to the work of climate city contracts, then please reach out to me or Åsa. I think that you will be shared our contact details later. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for the presentation. How the question that comes up to me is, because I know of several efforts also in Austria, and we are partly successful, but sharing the experiences would be interesting. How is it? I mean, how do you come to talk with the cities? Because I mean, at least we from our department, we come very much from research and innovation and so on. And from this angle, maybe it's not the best angle. I mean, to attract them to the table to discuss. So how I mean, Fredrik and me are always also discussing this when we are working on our joint efforts to do joint programming transnationally, how to involve the need owners, as Fredrik called them. So it's always a question how to step in their boots and look on it from their point of view. So how could you get in touch with them and attract them to the discussion?
So I can start, and then you could add also. So this is a really good question, and something that we are constantly also developing sort of the methods and how we have a dialogue with the cities. It helps a lot that we a few years ago launched a grant call for funding where 9 cities applied and were given the go-ahead to start the climate neutral cities 2030 for these 9 cities. So with that, we have a project leader in each of the cities, and these project leaders is running projects that has components such as innovation teams and an action plan and so on. So there is an organization in place. So that's one way of sort of organizing us towards the mission that we sort of built on when we worked with the Climate City contract process. But on top of that, I would also say that it has helped a lot to have a chairman of Mr. Allan Larsson, who was the former finance minister in Sweden, and I have good linkages also to European Commission and that coming mission on climate neutral cities. Because when it comes to the political level and the commitments there, we had one-on-one meetings with all of the mayors in the 9 cities. And I think that this one-on-one dialogue with the cities has been really important. And as well as the sort of the dialogue that we had leading up to the climate contracts with each of the innovation teams for the 9 cities. So working really on the ground with the key contacts has been vital for us in order to get to the point where we are now.
Does that mean with the first call you mentioned, you are also providing support to, I mean, the capacity building in the cities to form those kind of teams able to be, able to organize themselves?
Yes, we do. Perhaps also we can also mention something here about Accelerera, that project, and how we're sort of developing the field of innovation management. But please also.
Absolutely. And I think that, first of all, I think that our transition lab is really key. It's not only about the cities working in their best efforts separately, but it's about enabling a more systematic way in learning from each other and really kind of, we're talking a lot about good seconds. It's not about winning. It's about creating a lot of good seconds. Mm-hmm. So sometimes it's a little bit of an illusion of cities competing with each other. And when it comes to climate transition and sustainability, we need to really have a lot of good seconds. And the climate, I would say the transition lab is really a key mechanism for that. But then, as Olle said, we also have an effort in order to support transformative systems innovation management. So it's innovation management skills that we support different cities with. So we have an effort that we have co-developed with Vinnova, one of the funding agencies, and that is actually now developing a whole host of different support mechanisms geared towards cities. But at the start, as Olle said, the call for proposals in 2019 has enabled the cities to organize themselves. And we actually really, one key criteria was that this needs to go beyond one separate administration part of the municipality. It needs to include a holistic view of governance, both within the municipal organizations and also beyond. And what we have seen along the way is the more we focus on getting the financial flows aligned with the mission, the more it becomes about the collaboration between the city concern, the city kind of companies and the city, the different companies involved, also external to the municipalities and all their other stakeholders. So how do we actually make financial flows align in order to make the climate transition happen? We know that a lot of investments and a lot of financial flows are actually counteracting today climate transition and sustainability. So we need to kind of address that. And that actually expands, I would say, the discussion. So if we take the city of Växjö, for instance, they're in very close dialogue with all their utility companies, their real estate companies, and all their external stakeholders in order to, how do we change the way we do this?
Gary, Fredrik, any comments, questions?
Yeah, I was thinking about similar issues also, because on the one hand, you need to innovate, and certainly on the systems level, there's so much changing that this really needs a lot of thinking. But you need to also implement this on the ground, otherwise nothing will happen. And the connection between what you're doing in the program and this implementation, that was my question. So you were already a bit going in that direction.
Yeah, it's actually interesting that you pose that question, because what we have really learned from an early start, it's not the traditional research, innovation and technology development program. Mm-hmm. It's a holistic way of tying together different efforts, from research and innovation efforts in early stage to implementation and scaling, and also financially changing the way things work in policy matters, changing the way things work in practices of how do cities address these issues, change the things in which way it works. So if we look at, for instance, the city of Uppsala, since 10 years back, they have a platform for collaboration between a lot of actors that is called Uppsala Climate Protocol. It's actually the majority of all people that have an employment within the municipality of Uppsala actually are engaged in that. And that is in the work since 10 years back. And that is a very, very heavy platform for the implementation of this climate transition that we're working on together. And the climate city contract is one key element, but all these kinds of local structures, local stakeholder involvement processes are really key, including involving citizens.
Very inspiring. Thank you.
When we discuss innovation, then we have a long tradition, I think, in Europe, but also in our countries, that all of a sudden we think about technology.
Absolutely.
But innovation might be something much more than this. So the question is a little bit, what role does technology play in this kind of innovation that you are after? But on the other hand side, how are you framing innovation in this context? I mean, all that you are talking about is pointing out that innovation is something else than just pure technology. But I guess on the other hand side, there is also maybe a technology aspect in it. But how do you manage to balance this in the right way, to take it from the right angle?
I would say that I've been an innovation professional for a very long time, and I would say that when I started out like 25 years ago, it was all about technology, and the discussion was a lot about technology. But when you think about innovation today, it's innovation with a purpose. It's innovation involving a lot more actors than the traditional companies and the traditional R&D and technology actors. And when we talk about systems innovation, you need to include such things that actually refer to financial logics, to policy, to the way we behave in our everyday lives, and the way we, for instance, organize and plan and execute city, the built environment and the organization of the city, in order for to enable production, consumption, and behaviors that are actually enable a sustainable and climate neutral life. That is not the way things work today. So technology obviously has an enabling part in that. But I would say that we need to get rid of the image that it's about technology, because it's about achieving something which has a very clear purpose. And in this case, it's about achieving climate neutral cities with a good life for all. So it's about what is the city life, what is the everyday life about. And I would say that we need to kind of think about technology as an enabling factor, but not as something that is really kind of everything needs to point to technologies.
Ole also wanted to contribute. I guess one question is then also maybe later on how, I mean, do we have the tools for this? Because, and what tools did you create for this? But sorry, Ole, go with your statement.
No, so perhaps on top of what Åsa said, like a short example from the city of Gothenburg in Sweden, so one of the nine cities. The part of their work within the Climate City Contracts 2030 is a zone in Gothenburg that they're planning for, so a carbon emission-free zone. So at the workshop, together with a sibling strategic innovation program called Drive Sweden, we asked them to prioritize their needs in relation to this specific challenge area. And what I think is a bit interesting here on your question, Michael, regarding technology, was that out of 7 or 8 or something like that, different types of needs, they put the development and scale of new solution at the lowest. So this was prioritized as a number 5 out of 10. At the top level was supporting policy development and decision processes. So I think this is really interesting when it comes to sort of look at what is needed in the cities. It's not necessarily so that technology is the most important when it comes to innovation, so recognizing that there is a lot of great tech already out there ready to be implemented, but there is innovation needed within policy development, within organization, within finance, within citizen engagement, and so on. And we really need to work with this on a holistic level. And I think by testing technology, we can learn quite a lot on what is needed on all of these different levels.
So we need a complete new understanding of what innovation in a holistic manner means. About the tools, I mean, on the one hand side, we need maybe new innovation management tools to make that reality, to be really after this kind, or to initiate this kind of innovation. And on the other hand side, I think you have also will have to be quite creative to also create the kind of supporting tools or financial supporting schemes for this, because this is something else than to support technology. You cannot simply measure it with technology readiness levels or whatever we normally use.
But I think that one key innovation that we have achieved is actually the Climate City Contract per se. And that is both kind of an innovation tool, but it's also kind of a result from the innovation process. So I think that is one key element in our innovation process. And we have the opportunity and the privilege to work with leading researchers also on innovation policy. So there's a lot of talk about innovation policy 3.0 being directed towards missions and being in a systems orientation. And here, as you say, we need new tools and we need a new perspective of what is innovation all about and who is involved in it.
I guess also kind of governance in this innovation process that is different from, because who should lead on this, or how do you relate to each other?
Yeah, absolutely. New forms of collaboration is key.
Everyone in the audience is listening very intensely, I think, to your thoughts and presentations and everything. But it seems to be so clear that there are no questions at the moment.
Michael,
Yes.
if we still have time, I do have one question looping back to Ulle. You mentioned Allan Larsson as one of the key persons. I'm thinking every time there is a successful successful initiative some way, there are always some key pioneers or key, and I can tell from your presentations that you are such persons also that really have an idea and vision behind, but you also need these high-level ambassadors, which I understand that Allan Larsson is an example of. And what I wonder is, so how did you get him involved in Viable Cities? Was he there before the Viable Cities? Was he a reason for it to start, or how did you manage to loop him in?
Åsa, you can answer this.
Yes, actually, we have the privilege to involve Allan even before we have the funding for the innovation program in this agenda process that Emina was describing earlier on. So Allan was part of the process, and I would say that one key moment in the history of the Viable Cities journey was when Allan Larsson, together with our program director Olga Kordas, went to Brussels and met with the European Commission and the European Parliament and other actors to find out what was kind of around the corner in research and innovation policy. And that was at the beginning of the discussion on missions. And then they realized that, well, that's actually what we're doing. So we were actually at that point very much aligned with the current thinking at that time on missions. So we kind of, it was a coincidence in time that we had just started, and this process on mission-oriented approach had become more clear at the EU level. And one of the examples that was discussed at that time was actually Climate Neutral Cities 2030. So actually what we did then was to bring that mission on board. And since we worked very closely in the dialogue with our funding agencies and with the Commission and other parties, we enabled also kind of a co-development, I would say, of the agenda on the European and the Swedish level to some extent with the way we work, because we became a living example. And that was obviously also very much facilitated by Allan Larsson. But I would say that we have been very fortunate to have a very good team and super engaged people from the political level, at the city level, for instance, and a lot of experts and people in different capacities have contributed. But I would not, the importance of Allan has been really, really powerful. And now we have a new leadership with two new people. It's Cecilia Kjellin Cedergård, who is our new president of the program, and a co-president is Anders Wikman, who has been very also engaged in the climate transition work. So we're very happy for that.
So we can see that also there is an importance for inspired and inspiring people in such kind of huge processes. Should we go on to the next session? The timing would be right for it. I'm reading what Nicholas has prepared for me. So it's about the portfolio strategy for Mission Climate Neutral Cities. And it's presented by Katarina and Ole together. Are you starting, Katarina?
I can
Ole,
start
you
a
are
bit this
starting.
time, yes.
Okay, please.
So we are moving a bit from what is specific for viable cities to and what has been developed so far to something that is emerging from viable cities, and where we would like to collaborate together with different stakeholders within the field. So Katarina and I will talk a bit about the emerging field of portfolio approaches and our thinking around the portfolio strategy for mission climate neutral cities 2030. So a bit of background for this. Imagine the width or breadth of stakeholders and the sort of the impossible task to work with all of them. So as we just discussed, we really need to innovate how we innovate. And my colleague Katarina and I are working a lot of this along with other colleagues at Viable Cities. So Katarina, you might want to present yourself.
Yes, hello everyone. I'm very glad to join this conversation. I am a researcher working in KTH, Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm. And as it was said, KTH is hosting viable cities, but KTH also was among those actors who drive, who kind of been the initial group who initiated viable cities agenda. And I happen to be in touch with people who've been driving as this process. So I sort of familiar with the journey of viable cities from the very beginning. And now I'm focusing on research in the context of portfolio, mission-oriented portfolio, and transformative innovation policy.
So it's really also rewarding with the type of process where we have right now, where you represent a research perspective. I'm a bit more of a practitioner, so where we bounce back and forth ideas from more the theoretical dimensions with the practical implications. We can have a look at the slides again, please. Thank you. So we are right now having dialogues with several organizations on the development of this portfolio strategy. For example, a couple of weeks ago, we discussed with UNDP based on their ambitions and also efforts so far within portfolio thinking. The same goes with OECD, where we have an ongoing conversation. We just agreed to have a webinar later this year. And you are also welcome to join us in the development of this portfolio strategy, because we envision an open format where you see it says here, this is version 0 point something. But our ambition is to take this to a 0.1 version, although it could be in constant beta. And that it could be co-developed and co-owned by several organizations. Because for us, it's important when we sort of think of a portfolio in relation to the mission, it is very important that we relate it to other organizations' portfolios. So for Viable Cities, we of course have all the different projects that we have funded so far and that we will fund in the future. But we want to have an open API towards the initiatives of others in Sweden, in Europe, and globally. But it could be pretty good to start with why. So simply put, we want to have a portfolio strategy as a tool to work towards the mission. So given the thinking of the directionality that Åsa was talking about earlier as the sort of the main reason for having a mission-oriented approach, but we want to develop the portfolio strategy to give us a base layer so we can counter the siloed and fragmented efforts, because honestly it's quite easy that we just fund a number of projects that are not connected enough. But Katarina, can you sort of say a bit more about the sort of the problems and perhaps what is missing here, and our thinking on why we would need a portfolio strategy?
Yeah, maybe I can add. I think many of funding programs, they are used to fund activities organized as projects, and we become maybe so much used to this form of organizing that we see there is, of course, positive things with projects in terms of accountability and like having clear maybe goals and deadlines, but they are usually short term. And kind of a drawback of projects and projectification process can be that we are losing our more long-term goals behind always focusing on more short-term deliverables. So basically one motivation also behind portfolio is how you think, how you kind of return back to thinking a little bit more long term. And again, having missions helps, but then what is a mechanism how you connect projects in a temporal dimension that you somehow identify how they contribute to a bigger goal and how you learn from all of them. So it's both about connecting across, but also connecting in time as one of those ideas behind portfolio thinking.
Thank you, Katerina. We can have a look at the slides again. So with this in mind, it sort of comes to the point where we consider not viewing the portfolio as merely a portfolio of projects, but rather that if we would look at it as a data set, the actual portfolio would consist of the challenges, or the needs, or the barriers. So meaning this is where we would need to see innovation or implementation happen. And we even phrase it when it comes to the type of solutions that we frame it here as options. So on one hand, we would have what sort of the basic needs or the challenges that is really promising to work with towards the mission. But on the other hand, the type of solutions or options that could be tested. At the same time, we could also consider having investment plans, learnings, and people as part of the portfolio. I think that the main message here in what we're sort of developing or proposing for others to work with us as a sort of thinking is that rather than just simply listing the projects, if we have a tendency to do that, we would propose that we rather list the most important challenges, needs, and barriers, as well as different type of options that could meet these challenges, needs, and barriers. So if we could have a great data set of this and see a lot of learnings and connect it to key initiatives, we do believe that it would be much easier for us to work within large stakeholder groups and between a big number of different programs in Sweden and elsewhere to have a common approach towards the mission of climate neutral cities with a good life for all within the planetary boundaries. Katerina, do you have any other comments on when it comes to this?
No, I think it's yeah, absolutely what Uli just said, and I can only say that it's not only our kind of own thinking, but we are also having this constant dialogue between like theory and practice in viable cities. Maybe we can say that there is a kind of transdisciplinary culture in viable cities that we are trying to both learn from experience, to have reflexive approach, but also look into relevant theories. And those ideas behind portfolios are also supported with transformative innovation policy, for example. So we see that it's aligned with what other researchers find out.
Thank you, Katerina. So we can have a look at the slides again. So if we take it from this type of thinking when it comes to what type of data we would like to see in our portfolio, it's also good to, on top of that, have formulation on different types of levels. So let's begin with the mission driver. We believe that Viable Cities is one, perhaps out of several mission drivers towards the mission of climate neutral cities 2030. But there are other, and we do have our portfolio of different aspects. But then we really have a model where we put the local government in the driver's seat for this transformation. So in the local government, they gather a big number of stakeholders in the city, and they in turn have a portfolio of different initiatives that are relevant for the transformation towards the mission. So here, really recognizing the cities' work and their portfolios, and see how we could work on connecting the portfolios between the cities as well. So this is an important point. At the same time, there are also other types of portfolios. So, for example, the Swedish Energy Agency, they have their portfolio along with other governmental agencies in Sweden and other initiatives. The strategic innovation programs in Sweden do have a lot of insights that would be very valuable to tap into, to not sort of develop the same thing over and over again, if you understand what I mean. So for us to have collaborations with other strategic innovation programs in Sweden, as well as other organizations in Sweden, is very important. So having, again, sort of an open interface or API where we can connect between these portfolios is really vital. But at the same sense, it's sort of easy to look at the country level of knowledge and forgetting that 99% of the innovation is developed outside Sweden. So for us also to build in the linkages and the thinking with other economies outside Sweden is really important. Of course, the European collaboration helps a lot. But also we believe it's important to look at the portfolios outside Europe, and that we could have mechanisms to transfer knowledge between Europe and other economies. But taking this, if we go to the thinking of the level of the city, so taking this a bit to the practical level, as mentioned a couple of times now, we had a call a few years ago that I think was in 2019, where we then selected 9 cities to work with us within the Climate Neutral Cities 2030. As also mentioned, we have now a call for funding that is called Climate Neutral Cities 2030 2.0. And what we put in the grant call text was what you see here, that we really want them to present their portfolio of investments, and we have it as the criteria in the call that they should develop a clear portfolio that for each of the 20 cities. So we really hope that this will help us when it comes to connecting the cities across the city borders. So, Katarina, we do not have that much time left. I think it's about 1 minute or so. But if you could briefly talk a bit about the theory of change to a portfolio toolbox.
Yeah, maybe just very briefly to mention that, as I already said, that in like viable cities having this dialogue between like theory and practice, we are inspired by several kind of prominent like theories from the like recent times, and particularly in portfolio work, we are looking into transition studies and transition management, into complex system theory and system-oriented design, to look for relevant ideas about how changes are happening, like those large-scale changes, how they happen, to then operationalize those ideas in a more practical approaches. And then portfolio toolbox, our ambition is to build a sort of toolbox of more practical specific instruments. And as Ule just exemplified, how you frame call can be one way, but then we see other possibilities, and we see that all those areas, like those big fields of research, can inspire or contribute with insights how portfolio toolbox can look like. And maybe on the next slide, if we just will quickly show some ideas in this direction, we have started some of them, like Viable Cities has started some of those developments. And we are particularly thinking how you can develop methodology to design and manage portfolio. As Ule already mentioned, how we can create a sort of data structure framework to collect more systematically information about barriers, challenges, needs, leverage points, and systems. For example, development of shared language would be a very big enabler. We see that we are missing vocabulary in this emerging field of portfolio approach, so we need to work towards shared vocabulary with other interested actors. And I mean, the shared sense making within tradition lab and beyond, and looking for investment mechanisms. All those are directions which can enrich portfolio with a more specific mechanisms, how it can be put in practice on different levels. Ule?
Can open up for
Sorry, I didn't have a sound for a moment, so I don't know if that was only on my side. Ole, I think at least I didn't catch your last statement. Can you repeat it?
So I think my last statement was just leading the word back to you. Perhaps my mic was off.
Okay, so your point.
Yeah.
I would add that my thinking was focusing on something that I want to bring up later. So I would call first Gerdi and Fredrik to maybe comment or raise questions. If you don't have any at the moment, then I come with mine. But that is a little bit leading a little bit away from the portfolios. Therefore.
But I think it was, I mean, there are so many details I would like to discuss, but one thing I came thinking a lot about was what Katarina, where you were mentioning just about the sort of, you had this picture with these 3 different parts of how you do a portfolio management and the ideas behind that, which I think to me is very appealing. And I think many of us can relate to exactly how do you create an ecosystem and how do you manage it. Maybe, I don't know if you can elaborate a little bit more on, because it's one thing to have it in theory, but the other is to try to do it. So has this been a natural process for you in your network, or is it something where you have to kind of, there's a lot of work to get everyone to think in this way? Because I imagine it's not sufficient to just have it in a strategy document. You need to work it.
I think that the next presentation is where we talk about an initiative that we have that is called Climate Smart Cities Challenge. It's like a clear way for us to sort of work with this portfolio thinking in practice, but that we will get back to. So I think my main comment for this more generally is that it is as much about sort of building the culture and the knowledge with all of the different stakeholders that we work with, including collaboration partners, but also with the local governments in the 9 cities, soon the 20, as well as for the projects that are within Viable Cities and our collaborating partners. So it's a mindset where we constantly want to connect these type of approaches to what we do and to the upcoming calls and so on. But I think in a perfect world, it would be great to have even a shared sort of data set and data structure for how we work with this in order to make it more practical and even more clear, and how we could visualize it. This is really hard to achieve, and especially on an international level. It's hard enough in Sweden, but that doesn't necessarily need to be a hinder towards sort of working toward making that happen. So perhaps that is something that we will see in a few years, but we're far off from that right now. I can see that Åsa is also wanting to join the conversation here. Michael.
Yeah, just a brief comment. I would like to say too that Katarina was talking about coming beyond the projectification in order to achieve the mission, and it's a lot about creating a movement. And it's a lot about allowing for flexibility for different initiatives and different actors to do things differently. But actually, when things, oftentimes we find ourselves in discussions where we think about what is the additionality of this effort. And then the additionality, I would say, is the whole, because there are loads and loads and loads of efforts that are not addressing the whole, but it's really kind of a holistic effort in order to achieve a mission by creating a movement, in a sense. Thank you.
So a follow-up on that as well, and the movement in relation to your question or comment, Fredrik, is also that it's really helpful now that we have the Climate City contracts in place in the first round. It will be even more helpful in the next round, as we hope that the sort of the commitments and the sort of the clarity of the contracts will be further strengthened. But what I mean when I say it's helpful is that we do more and more understand what the key initiatives are. And since we just know that, we can soon then know what the main barriers or hinders are within these defined challenges, perhaps. And this way we can open up for a lot of actors with a lot of knowledge from this movement in Sweden and elsewhere around the world to work together to sort of support the implementation in each of the cities. And I think with that, and what we're also developing quite a lot, that is really vital with the investment plans, which it's investment both from the local government, but as much or even more from the private stakeholders in the cities, as well as, of course, the citizens that sort of have a big wallet that can be used in relation to the mission as well. But just knowing and sort of agreeing on what the key activities are helps a lot.
Yeah, that's very interesting, and I think related to the question that I had in mind before, because and I really think that's one of the most important discussions we can have, what you're touching now, and to call it a movement and to take it from this angle, I think is really perfect, as it shows what we are after. At the same time, then of course I question, and I think that relates a little bit to what Fredrik said. Okay, how do you organize this movement, or how is it self-organizing? I should phrase the question better, because you said, okay, you have to give room that this self-organizing can happen, and in a way. And the question that I had in mind was, I think, very much related, because you were talking about data, but at the end we need to share or manage knowledge. So we need to find out what activities, what measures, what actions are leading us in the right direction, and we need to agree on them. But that also means that we need to know about them together, and we need to create the joint knowledge. And from data about making some kind of useful information out of it until a joint knowledge, there is a long way to go. Are there any findings or conclusions that you have so far, what someone can do to help to manage this? I mean, or is it just, is the mission so strong that the self-organizing effects are enough and they will at the end rule the game, or can we do anything around it to support this knowledge creation and the knowledge exchange?
I think that meetings.
What is the right framework for this?
Yeah. So I think meetings is really important in this. So like the relationships between key people. So And especially if you look at those that are within the Viable Cities program or have been funded. So as Åsa presented earlier, we have as a sort of backbone structure with the Transition Lab, as we call it. This is sort of the core of everything that we do. But we 3-4 times a year we have a Transition Lab forum. So a bit more than a month ago, we had Transition Lab Forum 5, focusing on investment plans. So this, where we have sort of key thinking around that, follow up by workshops and so on. And I think also if you could sort of elaborate a bit about the thinking with the Transition Lab and the forums and how we're sort of developing this field as a sort of a common practice, perhaps for the movement of the key contacts that we work with.
Yes, I think that one key part is actually, as Olle said, developing relationships, and as Katarina was saying earlier on, creating a shared language and a shared narrative for what we do is really, really a key part of what we do. That is a key part of the innovation content and the innovation process. We work on storytelling, and we work on a lot of different activities within our Transition Lab, because we need to actually challenge a lot of the, I would say, the established practices. Between, if we look at traditional research and innovation activities and funding mechanisms, and also kind of the action and the practice in the cities, we know that there are lots of things that we need to change in order to transform cities to become climate neutral. And if we look at the cities that are the most successful, and Swedish cities are really at the forefront in the climate action internationally, we know that we need to step up the transition pace in a very, very significant way. So we need to be able to have an openness towards changing the way we work. Mm-hmm. And I think that building relationships, building a shared language, and building a shared narrative of what we're doing and how we're doing it and why we're doing it is really key to that. Because we know today, if we look at, for instance, the discussion and the dialogue that we're having with our sibling program, Drive Sweden, we'll know within the mobility and transport sector and the transport mobility aspect of cities, we are doing loads and loads of things totally wrong today. So it's not only about finding new practices, it's stop doing the things that we need to stop doing. So that's kind of a big part of it. And I think that it takes a lot of acceptance to saying that what we're doing is actually not working and not defendable.
So what I hear is that it requires at the end really something like a deep and common knowledge in a sense that is not only fact-based but much more deeper, like also being convinced and yeah, committed to it together, which makes the initiative strong, because everyone alone might not have the or not have the faith to go forward with it, or to stop things that we need to stop, or to start and push things that we need to push. And I also heard that, of course, there are different levels. Like you have this kind of you call it transition labs, and I would really be interested to learn more about what this exactly is. But they are somehow, it seems, they are bundling knowledge on a level, and they are able to connect to each other and somehow coordinate this knowledge with other kind of these knowledge hubs. But at the same time, you talked about storytelling, so it's about also spreading this common knowledge and share it really with a broad community, which are completely different aspects. So, but different tools on different levels help to also find the right governance for this knowledge management, or however we call it.
Yeah. Mm.
Very exciting. I'm looking on the timing. We need to go on, but still I want to ask Gerdi or Fredrik if you have any questions at this point or comments.
Well, I would be happy to go on.
Then let's jump in our last presentation block, and Ole already raised it or made a ramp to it more or less. It's about initiatives for collaboration with a focus on climate smart cities challenge. You said already we need to collaborate on a national, on a regional, but also on a transnational level. Please take the floor, Ole.
So yes, I think I think in this context also it could be good to present a format that would make it possible for collaboration also on a European level. So one out of many initiatives that we are also joining or developing ourselves is the Climate Smart Cities Challenge. But I think before we go into this initiative specifically, it would be interesting to look at this image on the European partnership driving urban transitions to a sustainable future. And for this conversation, I think it would be good if we could again include Ms. Emina Pasic in the conversation again. So Emina, what do we see here?
Thank you, Ole. Yes, as you mentioned, this is really broad range of different networks and platforms which we also looking to collaborate, and most important and close to this thematical issue in viable cities is driving urban transition partnership, which viable cities already involved in development in the PED, positive energy districts pillar. And for you, maybe more information that about this partnership, that is 3 different pillars: positive energy districts, 15-minute cities, and circular urban economy. And viable cities actually is really close to all these 3 pillars, but mostly engaged in the positive energy district. What we also see here, it's a really huge number of different networks and on different levels, and also different organization, and also possibility for collaboration and possibility to really put this on the next level for collaboration between the 2 partnership, Clean Energy Transition Partnership and DUT Partnership. One of the closer example for or possibility for next step and next upcoming activities is mission innovation, which we looking how to really try to bring actors on board, and from the national level, European level, and even globally at international level. And we also looking for some activities to collaborate even with the IEA and UN Habitat and in this group. I think maybe I can really point out this as an opportunity to find out the link or model for collaboration together with these two partnerships, and really to strengthen the possibility for European actors to collaborate in international networks.
Thank you, Emina. And of course, if we look at Viable Cities as a program, we are placed in this sector here to the left. But in relation to the sort of the portfolio thinking for us, if you remember also the international level of portfolio, it's important with initiatives that could sort of bridge the gap between national and international. Climate Smart Cities Challenge is such an initiative where we, together with some other partners, including UN Habitat, but where we see strong linkages to mission innovation and IEA, along with some of the other cities and regions, neighboring partnerships and other networks within the Dutch partnership. So I think this is, for us, very interesting to sort of further strengthen and see if we also could relate an initiative such as Climate Smart Cities Challenge even more than what we do today to the European level. So with that, I'm gonna see if I can change some slides. Yes, so this is an initiative to collaborate towards the mission of climate neutral cities. But it was actually a Swedish association, you see it in the bottom left corner, Teknikföretagen, that reached out to us last year. So this is an organization with 4,000 members of Swedish companies within the tech industry. So obviously they have a large joint portfolio of innovations or innovative technologies that could be really helpful to reach the mission of climate neutral cities. So we said yes to join into this initiative, and together we have since connected a few other organizations. Of course, the Swedish Energy Agency that is working closely with us in this initiative, along with Vinnova, the Swedish Innovation Agency, Smart City Sweden, Business Sweden, actually a number of new organizations from Sweden that is also joining. But as importantly, UN Habitat. So both because of their knowledge and mandate within the city and their mandate within Sustainable Development Goal number 11 of Sustainable Cities, but also because of their reach and how they could work outside Europe and to some extent within Europe as well. So we've agreed to some long-term objectives of this initiative. So basically we do it because we want to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in cities and create a better future for all. But by doing a lot of testing and working towards scaling. So I will talk a bit here about the sort of the systems demonstration approach a bit later. But recognizing, as we mentioned a few times, the sort of the importance of investments in this. So we have a goal of having at least 300 million euro in investments. And that this could also be seen as a sort of the export potential for partnering countries, for Sweden, for other, if relevant, other countries in Europe, and as well as some key key countries that we're working with that I will get back to soon. So we had an open call together with Nesta Challenges, an organization that is really good on doing competitions or challenge prizes. It was open for any city around the world to come with submissions. So we had 58 coming from 54 cities on 4 continents, and mostly public. So it was a big local government interest in this open call. So with this, we have just recently selected Bogota in Colombia, Curitiba, Brazil, and Makende, Sassabago in Uganda, as well as Bristol in England. So we will now work together with these cities to further define the challenges. So UN Habitat's role at this stage is to work with these 4 cities to define their challenges in a way that could be presented as a competition later this year, and then we will have some negotiation from the winners of these or finalists of this competition and the 4 cities, and then work towards having system demonstration in hopefully then each of the 4 cities. But this, and this is a small box, but that's actually the big thing, towards investments. So basically we use the time from, or the learnings from the system demonstration in order to inform large-scale investments in the cities. And it doesn't even have to be the solutions that was the winning solutions from the competition that then is giving funding for further investments. So the importance is the learning. So we do some soft launch this year and the launch during the World Expo in Dubai. And you can imagine that we work with a lot of our joint portfolios to reach out and find solutions in Sweden and elsewhere to connect to these ambitions that they have in the cities. So I just want to mention a couple of words about the cities' focus areas outside Europe. So please bear in mind that Bristol is also one of the cities. But for Bogota, the focal point would be freight logistics. It's a really important field, transportation generally, but in Bogota, they pointed this out as the most important sort of challenge area for them. Curitiba, they have a more of a systemic approach with zero carbon areas, actually a bit close to the one in Gothenburg, in the thinking there. And there is a focus on green residential development in Uganda. So I think within the CETP would be interesting to sort of have a conversation on how the knowledge that has been developed and will be developed within some of the CETP areas, such as net zero emission energy system, the built environment, and cross-cutting dimension would relate to these 3 cities, along with Bristol, of course. So with that, I think that we've made a pretty brief introduction to Climate Smart Cities Challenge, but we would be happy to share more information if you want. And part of the slides also give you the link so where you can read a bit more about this initiative.
Yeah, that's very impressive. Now we moved from linking cities in Sweden up to the world and really enthusiastic initiatives that are working around the globe. That's really impressive, and it also shows on the one hand side. And if I looked on the map of the different initiatives that you try to somehow link, and the idea of the portfolios, yeah, to find how to work with this whole network and networks, it shows on the one hand side, I think, really the complexity of the world that we are also in, and that we try somehow to link to each other and to move in the same direction. On the other hand side, it also shows the big opportunities we have, because there are already so many people enthusiastically working on these issues in different fields and in different networks, focusing on different things. So that's I think also promising for the future, looking on the efforts that we have to take in the coming 10 years. Yeah, we can only really hope that all this enthusiasm and power that is already out there somehow gets really behind and one force and forming one force to change really our world. Any questions from you, Gerdi? I also saw that Frederick is back.
Cannot hear you, Gerdi.
Gerdi, are you muted or?
Yes, that's sorry.
Yeah, now
I
we
was
hear
muted.
You. Yes.
Yes, thank you very much for the global outlook, which I hadn't, I wasn't really counting on, but it's really good to see that you're also, as Swedish organizations are reaching out not only on the European scale but also on the global level, and collaborate, bring together all the questions that the whole world has to make their cities viable. But I'm dazzled at the same time because it was really quick and a lot to digest for me. But my congratulations for what you are doing there. It's really, I think it will help the world go into the right direction.
Yes, and thanks also. I think it was interesting to see also, or you mentioned also the links that we can build between the two initiatives, the Clean Energy Transition, which is looking on some certain technology or system integration aspects, and you're really looking on it from the beginning, from the need owners side. I think there will also be some very interesting opportunities. Yeah, we have only a couple of minutes to go, and I would like to wrap up on the one hand side by calling all our speakers of today on the stage again. Thank you very, very much for this very impressive and interesting presentation. We can learn a lot here for Austria as for our national programs, but also for building the Clean Energy Transition Partnership. Thanks a lot for this input. In the second round, I would love to have my two co-moderators on stage again, Gerdi and Frederick, not only to wrap up on this specific session that we had today, but also on the series of events that we had. So, what was your experience? How do you look on it from the end now? And thank you very much, Gerdi and Frederick, for your company through all these Fridays. It was quite a long road. Yeah, and you were very committed. Thank you very much for this.
Yes, thank you for organizing all of this, and it has been very good to see all the work that has been going on in Aeronets on the European scale, but also these programs in the last part of the dialogue sessions where we got more of an insight into what countries are doing on a national level, but also on a global level, of course, because that's what we saw just now. So I think it has really been inspiring and good also to look at what is innovation. That was a question that was really getting to the surface today, and I've been learning a lot too, so it was a good experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Gerdi. Yes, I can agree. I've also learned a lot, and it was really a nice experience. At the very end, unfortunately, Frederick had to leave us. He wrote something that someone is knocking at his door or something, so that also shows us the kind of environment that we are working at the moment, being at home on the one hand side, challenging things coming from families and people knocking on the door, and at the same time meeting on a more or less, at least European, if not even global level. So that's also very interesting in those times, and shows us also how fast we are changing how we are doing things. At the very end of our show today, I also want to bring on stage Nicolas and Dirk, who were doing a great job in organizing and supporting all these events. So how are you? It was exhausting. I think sometimes you did a great job in the background that was not so visible in the meetings, but was really the thing that enabled us to be on stage every Friday. So Dirk, the technical things were also, I think we were also quite on the edge of innovation there, using innovative tools, right?
Yeah, we had some issues sometimes, but that makes the show.
Exactly. I remember at the beginning, I think it was the one of the first shows, I think we were somehow really blowing up and ended nowhere. So and from this we really started with a steep learning curve, and it went very well
Very
then
deep.
from there on. Thanks a lot for this. Also in offline mode to Christian, who helps to provide this framework. And thanks for all the technical, but also operational and advice that you gave, how to do things, how to moderate things, how to prepare things. Thank you very much. That was very, very helpful and important. Nicholas, you as a quite new staff member in the Austrian Ministry of Climate Action, coming from the research sector before, I think that was also not what you expected to do in the framework of a ministry. And I also think that our heads of departments and our colleagues in the department is not really what they expected us to do, basically. So also here some innovation and some brave step forwards to do things in a new way. What was your experience? You did a great job in organizing this all, because bringing all the speakers together, brief everyone, and so that was a huge organizational effort. Thanks a lot for this. So, but how was your experience?
No, it was great fun, and I think difficult times kind of make difficult measures necessary, and I think I learned a lot of IT issues in this period of time.
Yeah.
I learned a lot about new online tools, and I think that's something that I can take away. And I also want to thank Dirk and Christian, who have been very, very helpful in getting me up to speed in the technical preparations, and also thanks to you, Michael, and Ferdi and Frederick. It was great fun to have these shows with you.
Yeah, if you not have been before, then you became a manager really quickly, and was really fun to work with you. Now we have Frederick back. Frederick, we are wrapping up also the series of events a little bit, and taking the last minutes of the show today to celebrate also that we managed to do all this. I said to Nicholas before, that was something that maybe not also our heads of department in our ministry or our colleagues would expect us to do, basically. So there is also some kind of innovation here. How was it in the Swedish Energy Agency environment? You could find the day at the time, as well as Gerdi, every Friday, which is hard enough, I think.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, it was always hard to get it in, but somehow I think it's a good way to have a dialogue. And I also, I mean, I like the way to learn how we can use new tools in these times. And then, of course, it has also been a chance to, I think, I mean, no offense, Michael and Nicholas, but I talk to you a lot. But Gerdi, I don't have these continuous meetings with you, or now we have with Geothermica, but this has started even before. So I think it has been a way also to learn. I think it's part of expanding the network. So I think it's a very good way to have a sort of a, how would you say, a dialogue club around things. I still think it's a pity I missed last week's event, because that one I looked at it in afterwards, but it was really good.
Yeah, that's a good point that you're making, that we also should stress to the audience, everyone that's interesting in all the stuff we produced, it's online, it's on YouTube, you can always access it. Also, please feel free to share it if you like it on LinkedIn or other social media, so that also more people could get this information, because I think it's not our work, but we succeeded to bring really people on stage that have to tell something that is really interesting for many others. So please share this information with how many you can. I also put Christian's what he put in the chat here. Christian is always there. He's always looking on us and supporting us, and he tells us to watch the time, because we have been going over time now already for 4 minutes. I took this freedom because I think we have managed, Christian, with your help and also with your careful always pushing us and helping us to do it. We have managed really to do a good timekeeping during this series. So I took the freedom to be a little bit more relaxed this time. Thank you all for this. It was a great experience for me, and it was an experiment, and I think it was successful, and at least it was very nice, and I enjoyed it. Thank you all. Have a good time and share with whomever you can what we have produced. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot, Michael.
Thanks.
Thank you very much hosting this.
Goodbye, all.
Yes. Thank you very much too.
Thank you.